Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, I have to start that meeting, and I look for our honorable first Vice President, Klaus. There he is. Yeah. And dear President Pöttering.
Thank you so much, Mr. President.
And dear President Baron Crespo is present among us, the public, not as a speaker. And welcome Jerzy Buzek, former President of the European Parliament. And once more, dear members of Parliament and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this special edition of our Librorum Roundtable, organized in cooperation with the European Parliament Research Service. The event will be web-streamed live on the FMA YouTube channel in the original language only. But interpretation in English and French is available for those present in the room. Thank you, Vice President Othmar, for hosting this roundtable in the reading room of the library and for your long-standing support of our association. That is important at that time. Our members greatly appreciate the work of EPRS, which allows them to be well informed about the main dossiers on the EU agenda and the position of the European Parliament. Today we present the biography of a great former president of the European Parliament, who later preceded me as president of our association, because he is much younger than I. And who dedicated his entire life to the European project, Dr. Hans-Gert Pöttering. The book is called A European Conscience. Today we are presenting a life project, his life project, which has had a concrete influence on European politics in recent decades. I will leave it to the following speakers to delve more deeply into the personality of President Pöttering, his work, and his achievements. But allow me to express my personal respect to President Pöttering. Beyond our political differences, do we have some? No. I have not the impression. For his ability to listen, to dialogue, and ultimately to synthesize in order to find political solutions, while always safeguarding European values, the idea of maintaining the European Union as a continent of peace, prosperity, and respect for the rule of law. Thank you, President Pöttering. I would now like to give the floor to the first Vice President of the European Parliament, Othmar.
Honorable Presidents, dear Klaus HÄNSCH, dear Hans-Gert Pöttering, dear Jerzy Buzek, dear former and present members of the European Parliament, dear colleagues from the EPRS, dear ladies and gentlemen, and I can say in this room, dear friends. A very warm welcome to all of you on behalf of the European Parliament. As first Vice President of the House, I have many interesting responsibilities, such as for the European Parliamentary Research Service, which is really outstanding with his excellence and expertise. At this point, I would like to thank the FMA for the many years of excellent cooperation with the EPRS. I know from many personal conversations that the expertise of the EPRS is also highly appreciated by our former members and colleagues. And you told President HÄNSCH it is very important in this time of too much challenges at the same time and very complex challenges we have at this moment. In addition to my direct responsibility, I also have special occasions, such as today, when I represent the President. Unfortunately, Roberta cannot be here herself today. She asked me to send you her warmest greetings. She and I agree the FMA is a significant link between the European Parliament and the citizens. This is shown, for example, by the impressive list of events from last year. You, the 700 members, were particularly active again with a wide range of activities, including seminars, study visits, university lectures, and the spreading of information about the European Parliament and the European Union. This remarkable list is due to the full commitment of the current President, as well as the valuable impulses of the previous FMA Presidents. Dear friends, let me thank you from my side for your engagement. However, dear colleagues, it is also the commitment of all of you, the former MEPs, that makes the FMA this significant institution for the Parliament. On this occasion, I would like to take this opportunity as well to personally thank President Hans-Gert Pöttering, in particular for his personal commitment to the establishing the House of European History. I am convinced only if we know our roots can we find ways into the future. And personally, I will thank Hans-Gert Pöttering for his support to develop my career in the European Parliament from the beginning on. I am sure that also President Klaus HÄNSCH shares these thoughts. We are attending today your book presentation, Hans-Gert, and I am personally looking forward to that. As you say, Russia's terrible war of aggression against Ukraine should show us all what a treasure the European Union is. Solving problems peacefully, on the basis of law and without violence. I am sure these words unites all of us here in this room, and we must continue to spread them out loudly throughout the world. In this sense, the work of the FMA is becoming more and more important. And I wish all of us strength and endurance. Thank you very much, and enjoy this afternoon in your European Parliament.
Good evening, Mr. President, distinguished guests, distinguished colleagues. It's a particular pleasure that today we present the 11th Librorum in the library of the European Parliament. Thanks to the hospitality of the Parliament, a special thanks to the Vice President, Othmar, even for the fantastic, beautiful words you expressed in our direction. And thanks a lot to the President Metsola, too, for what you said. And we hope to go on with such an important collaboration. For us, it's fundamental because we believe that we can go on with the European institution and to understand Europe all over the world only if we are all together. And I think it's very important the work our members, they are doing all over the world, especially, as you said, in the university, in the school, all over the world. So for us, it's very important to go on with this action because we believe young, they need experience for the future, as our slogan said. A special thanks to John LEINEN, too, for the conclusion of this event, and to our colleague all over, first of all, Michael HINDLEY, but let me go on through this fantastic presentation. For us, we are proud to present this book, speaking about our special president, Hans-Gert Pöttering. For me, it was a privilege in the past to work with him, and to follow on even in the association. So for us, it's very important what the life of Hans-Gert Pöttering is going to say to the people, to the young people, etc. too. This book is edited by Michael HINDLEY and Markus Gonscher. Excuse me, my German is fantastic. Sorry. And anyhow, I try, to tell you something about this fantastic book, but as you know, it's a 662 pages of book, so it means even to go through not only the life of the President Hans-Gert Pöttering, but even to the main steps that happen in his important life inside the Parliament. We have to know that he was for 35 years inside the Parliament continuously. So I think you are the member that for a long time, that continually was in the Parliament. And it's very important because it was the beginning of the Parliament and even until, as we know, the enlargement. So for us, it's something important in the life. And let me say something. Everybody knows Hans-Gert Pöttering. I have to speak about his life, but it's very easy. Not easy, difficult, I want to say. Easy for who knows him, but as you know, he was president in 2007 until 2009. He was president of the Former Member Association 2018-2022. And as President Karas said, he was the person that he founded the House of the History, European History, that for us is very, as we said, important to explain our history, and even if we have a lot to do, and even in our states. So he was the person in charge of this. He's not only the president of the museum, he was chairman of the Konrad Adenauer Institute from 2010 to 2018. He's author of several books, but I want to remind here for the association, the last book of the last year for the association, he was co-author of Present Future of Europe, and we spoke about the future of Europe. I see Teresa, that she was with us, co-author of this book that I have to tell you, it's a successful book, and even, for instance, in the European Institute, they follow our idea and our issues. Hans-Gert Pöttering, in the words of Donald Tusk, dedicated the entire political life to the project of European unification. A Christian Democrat from Lower Saxony in Germany. The historians Michael HINDLEY and Markus Gonscher biography was first published in German in 2020 and is now available in English in this translation by Sebastian Schoenberg. Authoritative in its marshalling of evidence and measure in the judgments. Their book casts much light not only the European life of Hans-Gert Pöttering, but also, as I said, the pivotal political episode of the era. It powerfully demonstrates that the truth of Jean-Claude Juncker's judgment that, what he said, what marks out Hans-Gert Pöttering is Europe. For him, has always been a matter of conviction and never of political calculation. Since first elected in the European Parliament, he has never ceased his work to make the European dream a reality. The extensive biography, with a foreword by Donald Tusk, pays attention to small details, providing an excellent portrait of Hans-Gert Pöttering, starting from the family roots. The most important stages of his life are retraced. In some chapters, some of his statements are reported with highlight the integrity of his behavior. And the names of those who participated in the president's meetings in Parliament are also mentioned. Ultimately, the personality of a great European, highlighted a well-prepared politician, rich in humanity and culture. I had the privilege of knowing Hans-Gert Pöttering when he managed to coordinate the difficult operation of Forza Italia into the EPP group in the European Parliament. He was really able to find the right way. It was difficult, but he managed it very well. So thank you, because it was something very hard inside the Parliament, as we know in that period. Congratulations again. And thank you for your brilliant work, really. But now I leave the floor to Michael HINDLEY. Michael HINDLEY, as you know, is a member of our management committee, responsible of our well-known EP2 campus program, and he's a British map. So from 1984-1999, he's an expert in the European Economic and Social Committee, former association professor of Georgetown University. She's very, very attentive person. She's a precious member inside our board because I'm sorry, but sometimes too much. He's fantastic, and he's in the EP2 campus. He makes a fantastic job with Manuel Porto and with all our staff. So I give the floor to Michael, and then I think Hans-Gert Pöttering is going to say something special, and his dream now I think is reality. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I shall try very hard to be an impartial and unobtrusive moderator for this event, because it is your event and it is your chance to ask questions and join in a discussion based on the book in front of you. Let me just say two things why I'm very pleased. First of all, because the Librorum is a celebration of books. And books are very much part of our culture as Europeans and must be preserved and spread. And no matter how much we develop other interactive forms of communication, we must keep reading books and preserving libraries. The second reason why I'm very pleased to be here is that the very first meeting I attended as a member of the executive, I was immediately endeared to our then president because in a report he said that Brexit had been the biggest disaster and disappointment of his time in Europe, which of course immediately appealed to me, my politics, and with all your help here, perhaps that absence of my country will not be too long. I'll introduce Hans-Gert now, and then we'll open the floor. I'll follow the normal, I hope, polite practice. If you wish to speak, just give me a wave, and I'll try to call you in order and not intervene myself too much. But if I can start off by giving you a starter for 10 points, as we say in the quizzes. Perhaps you could explain, Hans-Gert, how do you actually come to write a book? why did you write the book and how did you write the book? In all your time in politics, did you keep notes or write a diary? And what was the point at which you sat down and thought, I shall write this book?
Thank you so much, Michael, for being the moderator. And I want to thank the Former Members Association and its president, if you allow me to say, my friend Klaus HÄNSCH, and the first Vice President of the European Parliament, Othmar, and of course Monica Baldi, Joe LEINEN. I'm the only person who is allowed to say Josef LEINEN because Joe is an abbreviation. So, and I want to thank Elisabetta Fonck and her staff as well for organizing this meeting. And I really must say that I look back to my 4 years as chairman of the Former Members Association with great joy, and we had a good cooperation. Answering your questions, Michael, I did not write this book. This is a book written by 2 historians, Gehler, Professor Gehler, who has a Jean Monnet chair in Hildesheim, and another historian, Markus Gonschor. And I wrote my own autobiography, but this is not part of our discussion today. And you mentioned Brexit. If you allow me to say, and I had the honor to represent our President Klaus HÄNSCH on the memorial service for Henry Plum, Lord Plum, who passed away in April last year, and the memorial service was the 28th of November last year in St. Margaret's Church, just beside Westminster Abbey. And my second last remark in this church was that I said before the audience, there were 600 or 700 people, I said, the time hopefully comes that Henry Plum, Lord Plum, will have a successor as President of the European Parliament coming from the United Kingdom. So I have not given up, Peter and our former colleagues from the United Kingdom, I have not given up the hope that one day Britain might join again, but it might not happen in our lifetime, but surprises are always possible. German unification, I never would have believed that it would happen in my time, although I always thought that communism one day would fall, like National Socialism did as well, because it's against human nature. So visions can become true, but it's really so. And when I see British former colleagues, former colleagues, I must say, I'm always very, very sad that Britain is not part of the European Union anymore, but it's part of Europe, and let's try to have a close cooperation with this great country, the United Kingdom. And I'm happy that a former member of the European Parliament from the United Kingdom, Michael HINDLEY, is now the moderator, and so I give back the word to you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you very much. So I say just, there are people out of sight, so if you want to raise your hand from that part, you please stand up. So can I just invite people from the audience at this stage to ask a question, make a point, make a contribution? Yes, I'm sorry if I don't spot people and know their names, but the lady who just put her hand up in the 4th row, yes, please, I remember. And I know the Hildesheim connection. Yes, please.
Here is the microphone. Thank you very much, Hans-Gert. Thank you for being here, of course, everybody of you. I have a personal question, if you allow. You can't say, no, I don't want to answer. We worked together in the Parliament for 25 years. We know each other a little bit longer. We talked a lot. We come from the same party, from the same region. But I don't know what's the biggest emotion, the biggest moment of your career. Not your biggest success, but personally, what was the best moment of your European career?
Godelief, thank you so much. Godelief Quissaud-Rovol is from Hildesheim, so she knows one of the authors quite well, Professor Gehler. You speak about career. And yes, I will give an answer. it was not very far from here in Rue Pascal, where my friends from the CSU had their foundation, and you were already a member of the European Parliament, the Hans-Gert Foundation. And we met there after the European election in '94, so it must have been June or the beginning of July in '94. And there were 3 candidates for the German group. There were only the Germans, 41 members, and 3 candidates for the candidate of the CDU-CSU to become vice president of the EPP group. At that time, it was not ED, just EPP group. And so having 2 competitors, it's in a democracy normal, but each vote counted. And there was a colleague, you may remember him from Thuringia, Rolf Behrendt, who had the same evening when we met there in the Hans-Gert Foundation. He had the first meeting of the council in his town. He was re-elected as member of the council in his little town. And he said to me, Hans-Gert, I cannot be there, but you get a great majority, so I have not to be present. And I said, please, Rolf, each vote counts. Please stay here. And he remained here in Brussels. And then the votes were counted, and there was a colleague even from Lower Saxony. I was astonished that he was a candidate. His name was Carsten Hoppenstedt. He got 6 votes. And then Doris Back, with whom I have an excellent relation, she was later president of the Cultural Committee, got 14 votes, together 20 votes, and I got 21 votes. So I was elected as candidate to become vice president of the EPP group. And if this result would not have happened, I would not sit here. So this is something I remember, how close things are, and it might have gone the other way around as well. So I think this was a very important moment in my political life, and so it is.
Yes, Hans, please. I'm also reminded of one of the best anecdotes in politics, which came from Lyndon Baines Johnson, who was asked what advice would he give to anyone who wanted to be a politician? What skill did you need? And Johnson said, the ability to count. So, please, someone over there, Peter Price, I recognize. Please, okay. Peter.
Hans-Gert, this is a book about you, written by others. What did you learn as you read this book that surprised you? Findings that perhaps were factually you would have never attached importance to, or interpretations of what had happened that you thought were insights that you'd never have thought of before?
So this is not easy to answer. As politicians, we all have our experience with journalists, and they are mostly very critical, and they always find something. And the glass is always half empty for journalists. And I was astonished to read when I read this book that the glass is half full. So I would not say that the 2 authors are too positive, but I was astonished that they are so positive. So that's my experience, and I don't apologize.
Okay, I'm looking round. Yes, Monica, go ahead.
Do you prefer to work with women or with men?
Can you repeat whether I prefer to work with women or with men? I never made a difference. If there were, I don't know whether this is gender-like, but when I had to work with good-looking ladies like yourself, Monica, it was always a pleasure, even more than normally. But I did not make a distinction, and I don't like this rhetoric of gender. So I believe in the dignity of each human being, whether it's a man or a woman or disabled or whatsoever. This is really the substance of my political beliefs, the dignity of each human being.
Gentleman in the first row. There's a roving mic coming.
Je vous remercie. Je suis Jean-Pierre Fouret. Je suis le président de l'Association européenne des anciens parlementaires. Je me présente car tout le monde ne me connaît pas ici, alors que quand même, régulièrement, j'ai participé à vos réunions, mais en tant que vice-président. C'est la première fois que je participe en tant que président. Permettez-moi d'abord, Monsieur le Président, de vous remercier pour la délégation des anciens parlementaires du Parlement européen, de la qualité de leur présence et de leurs interventions au sein de notre association. Je ne les nommerai pas, mais j'en vois déjà quelques-uns ici qui sont très efficaces et très présents pour apporter la contribution à la création de l'Europe que nous fêtons. Nous représentons l'association des parlements européens de la Grande Europe, celle du Conseil de l'Europe, mais votre participation est très appréciée. Permettez-moi de vous poser la question, car c'est le sujet, sur votre livre, Monsieur le Président. L'un des sujets qui me préoccupe en permanence en tant qu'ancien, c'est de savoir en quoi notre présence au sein de nos associations peut servir l'avenir. Il est intéressant de se souvenir du passé. Nous avons grand plaisir à le faire ensemble régulièrement. Mais le message que nous essayons de faire passer au-delà de notre expérience peut, à mon avis, servir énormément pour le futur. Quel est le message, justement, pour nos nouveaux parlementaires, qu'ils soient du Parlement européen ou membres des parlements nationaux, que vous souhaitez faire passer à travers ce livre?
I'm not sure. Thank you. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. I'm not sure whether I understood everything you said or you asked, because my French is not so good, but I hope I got the substance. I think it's very important, and I had the honor to speak for 2 minutes or 3 minutes in my political group this morning. It was a surprise for me that I was asked to say a few words, and I will repeat it here. I think we are living in a time that we, as parliamentarians or ex-parliamentarians, have to commit ourselves for our values. We experience authoritarian or even totalitarian countries in the world, Russia, China, and others. And I think this is a confrontation between totalitarian, authoritarian, or dictatorships and democracies which are based on law and the acceptance of human rights. And I think it's our task, and I say it to young people when I meet them and I'm invited for discussions, that we have to defend our values. And if we don't defend them, then we will lose them. And we should not be afraid. It's my deep conviction that in the end, democracy, legal order, human rights will prevail if we defend them. But we have to do it. And that's why I personally a very strong supporter of the people in Ukraine to fight this dictator in the Kremlin who wants to destroy the development of freedom in Ukraine. And so we have to resist. And if you allow me as a German to add the following. When Hitler had this meeting in Munich in 1938, the Munich Agreement. I don't know whether that is the exact English wording, the Munich Agreement. Daladier, Mussolini, and Chamberlain gave the Sudetenland, the western part of Czechoslovakia, to Nazi Germany, and they thought this would be the solution for the future and there would be peace. And Chamberlain said, peace for our time. And then Hitler, after he got this western part of Czechoslovakia, went further and attacked Poland, and you know all this. So I think we have to resist, as persons who believe in democracy, we have to resist all sorts of aggression, and if we do not do this, then those people like Putin will go further. I think this is something we should teach the young politicians. I don't know whether I totally got the right sentiment, but I hope that this is the line we should follow.
Yes, just for information, immediately after the Russian invasion of the Ukraine, our President then signed a letter of sympathy and solidarity on behalf of our association to all our contacts in the Ukraine, assuring them that we would support them through whatever manner we could. And since that time, we've had very good contact through the Parliament to Campus programme, which has been taken up, and we've now, in the last year or so, done more, obviously online, meetings with students and professors in the Ukraine than most of our other contacts put together. So it did work, and thank you for that letter at that time. Yes, please, gentleman, that, yes.
Yes. Good afternoon. I'm Hannes Swoboda. I'm former president of the Social Democrats and S&D group in the parliament. Hans-Gert, we could work together for some time on the enlargement question, and we worked very well across the lines. So I would like to ask you, in hindsight, what kind of reflection do you have on the enlargement process? Did it go well? Did it not so go well? Should it have been done something different? Because in some countries we have development, I think you and me, we don't like it so much. Did we make mistakes or not? Or is it just happened? Because you mentioned also Ukraine, and with all the promises given to Ukraine, and still the open promises to the Western Balkan countries, perhaps we can learn something from the past enlargement processes. So maybe you have some reflections, some thoughts about it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Johannes Swoboda, and I think very often about our good cooperation. But before I come to you, I must say that Klaus HÄNSCH was the first Social Democrat with whom I worked closely together in our subcommittee, Security and Disarmament. And Klaus, I would not say he had the same ideas, but our ideas were very near. And you may remember, Klaus, when we had a meeting of the then political committee in Dublin. It was terribly raining, and I went with Otto von Habsburg from our little hotel to the castle of Dublin. There was a discussion how it was in '84, a long time ago. And Egon Klepsch was chairman of our group and Rudi Arndt of your group. And there was a discussion how we should name this subcommittee. And there was, later she became minister in Germany, die Rote Heidi, and she wanted subcommittee of disarmament. And I thought this was not sufficient. And I said security is the word above disarmament. Disarmament is part of security. And it was Klaus HÄNSCH who made a great contribution that we finally found a compromise, and then we prepared different resolutions and reports. And Johannes, I mention you not always, but I think of you very often, and sometimes I mention you. When we worked together, you were vice president of your group. I was vice chairman of my group from 94 to 99. And we might remember or not, on the first list for enlargement, on the first list, Latvia and Lithuania were not mentioned. And we thought this was unjust. And in my group was a colleague from Sweden, Staffan Burenstam-Linder, and we managed first in our EPP group, Wilfried Martens was the chairman, that we were in favor of mentioning Latvia and Lithuania as well. And then I came to you and some others, and you decided the same thing. And I remember I wrote a letter to the then German Chancellor Helmut Kohl, and I said, it was a little bit exaggerated, I said, Mr. Chancellor, there are few people who know more about the unity of a political group, and it's vital for our EPP group that we put Latvia and Lithuania on the list for enlargement as well. And finally, we got the support of the Parliament, we got the support of the Commission and of the governments, and Latvia and Lithuania managed to become a member together with the other countries, with Estonia, Hungary, Poland, Slovakia, Czech Republic, Hungary, and then Cyprus and Malta, the 1st of May 2004. And Johannes, I will never forget your great contribution that we managed this. And I think if one takes everything together, I think the membership of those countries was a success, although for some time I thought that Bulgaria and Romania came a little bit too early to the European Union. But then I realized if we had not taken them to the European Union in 2007 in January, that's correct, yes, Josep Borrell was the last day, I guess, of the presidency of Josep Borrell. If we had not done this, then the appetite of Putin might have gone to those states as well. So in the end, I think it was justified to take them. But my advice for the future is countries must really make a great effort before they become member of the European Union. And hopefully the war of Russia against Ukraine ends soon. We don't know it. And we should do everything to that Ukraine becomes a member of the European Union as well, but it takes time. But I think we should always give this positive message to the citizens of Ukraine. I don't know whether Klaus HÄNSCH would like to add a few words. No. It's fine? Okay. Then I give the micro back to Michael.
Thank you. I must add that I think it's very much to the Parliament's credit, and those particularly in influential positions at that time, that the Parliament put a great deal of pressure on the idea that all the, particularly the countries from Eastern Europe, came in together, because to have expressed some kind of preference in the timetabling would have been very harmful, I think. And that was a very good decision of the Parliament, and the Parliament, and particularly those who were in influential positions at that stage, deserve credit for it, because it brought a lot of credit to the Parliament. Now, I can see someone else who wishes to speak. Yes, Jan. Yes, Jan.
Jan Mulder.
Jan Mulder. Yeah.
Thank you. A bit in relation to the previous question about your experience with the enlargement with 10 countries together and another 2 later. At the moment, there are other number of countries knocking on the door, not in the least in the Ukraine. If you look at the present treaty, what in your view is not satisfactory at the moment to receive new member states? Enlargement. You have your experience with the enlargement of the European Union with 12 new member states. We have now our experience how it works under the Treaty of Lisbon. If we want to admit new member states,
what should be changed in the present treaty to receive these countries well?
Thank you so much, Jan Mulder, and it's good to see you, like all the others, again here. I think for the future it's very decisive to get the majority voting in foreign policy. As far as sanctions are concerned, and you know the case that Cyprus for some time did not agree to sanctions to Belarus because they wanted to solve a problem with Turkey. And it's already in the treaty now, in the Lisbon Treaty, that by unanimous vote you can have majority voting in foreign affairs as well. And I think this is a very complicated question. I think once we get new members, they should accept a phrase or accept the consideration that if there would be, or the aim should be majority voting in foreign affairs, and they would not prevent it. So you understand this little difference, so that new members would agree to majority voting and they would not prevent it. I think this is a consideration which is very necessary if we want to have progress in the field of foreign and security policy. I don't know whether I totally gave the right answer to your considerations, but this is one point which is very, very important. And of course, the legal system in new countries, and as far as corruption and all this is concerned, I think we need to get progress, and we should learn from the experiences with some countries we had in the recent years and even at the moment.
If I can just add, why qualified majority voting only for the new countries? Why? Perhaps I misunderstood you.
No, I want to be clear. I want majority voting now, right. But we don't get it, unfortunately, now. But I don't want that with new members it will become even more difficult if you insist on a unanimous vote. I want an agreement from those countries that they will not prevent majority voting. It's a little bit sophisticated, but I think we should, I have never heard this from somebody, but I think we should think about this. Okay?
Please, other points, questions? Yes, front row, hand up.
Thanks, Mick. I make a personal comment, but I'm going to make quite an interesting reflection. Mick will probably agree with my perception as well. It's a long time since I've heard the breadth and the depth of the political discussion that we've had here this afternoon. In England particularly, and throughout the UK, you will not be unaware that the Christian Democrat wing of the Conservative Party has now completely disappeared. The Podemos wing of the Labour Party just isn't allowed to exist. So we're now confined to some very, very narrow and narrow-minded political debate throughout the UK, with the exception of Scotland, which has got its own problems. But to hear the chair of the Social Democrat group talk to a member of a completely different party in the way that you've done this afternoon, first of all, is refreshing, because it simply wouldn't happen in the UK. So apart from your own reflections, can I thank all of those of you who participated this afternoon to remind a lot of us about what political discussion and debate used to be about. It's absent now in the UK, but thank you for bringing it back again.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, I learned the art of compromise by becoming a member of the European Parliament. I was brought up in regional government, and we had a majority, and that was policy. And it was a very good experience to actually have to persuade not even people from a different political grouping, but even persuade your own fellow members of your same political group to reach a compromise. And it was a very encouraging learning process for me. Please. Yes, Isabella, I can see. Please. Do you know Isabella?
I don't know her name. Yes. I don't know her.
No worries. You wanted to steal it. Tell it to me. Okay. So I'd like to go back to the very interesting first question of my colleague. So beside being elected for just one vote, congratulations, I lost for one once. But which are your most joyful and exciting moments in your very long career, if you want to share it with us?
Totally fair to ask all questions, and as far as I can, I will give an answer. I really was happy when the Lisbon Treaty was ratified. And it was a very, very difficult development. And all those who participated in the Constitutional Treaty and in the Lisbon Treaty, and I'm thinking of so many. Joe Leinen was part of that, and my friend Elmar Brok, and many, many others. And it was such a disappointment that in May 2005 and then in June 2005, in these two referenda in France and in the Netherlands, the Lisbon Treaty failed. And the Netherlands had an excellent foreign minister at that time, and I can mention his name, Ben Bot. He was my party, a career diplomat, but he became foreign minister. And I was chairman of the EPP-ED group at that time when the Constitutional Treaty failed in these two referenda. And Ben Bot said, the treaty is dead. And then I made a press statement, and here and there in the Netherlands, it was mentioned that I did not accept this statement of Ben Bot. And then he came to my office with three gentlemen, his leadership of the Foreign Office, and I said to him, and I had a great respect for him still today, although I did not agree to his position. And I said, Foreign Minister, how can you say this, that the treaty is dead? We have to find a new solution. And this finally was the Lisbon Treaty. And the 25th of March 2007, there was the Berlin Declaration, 50 years, the Roman treaties. And this Berlin Declaration was signed by the President of the European Council, at that time Angela Merkel. We had still the old system, a half-year presidency in the European Council, then by José Manuel Barroso and by myself. And we committed the European institutions to find a reform, and that we wanted to achieve it in a foreseeable future. And then this Berlin Declaration from the 25th of March led to the Lisbon Treaty, which was signed the 13th of December 2007 in Lisbon. And the day before, some might still remember this, the day before, the 12th of December 2007, we had the signing of the Charter of Fundamental Rights, which is part of the Lisbon Treaty, in the European Parliament in Strasbourg. And the anti-Europeans were shouting because they wanted to make a mass of this meeting. And the King of Jordan was waiting to make a speech. But we managed finally to sign the Charter. And then we had the Lisbon Treaty. I don't know, do we have an Irish person here? I think this evening Pat Cox will be with us as well. Then there was a vote on the Lisbon Treaty in Ireland. And the first vote in the referendum was no. And so we had to convince the Irish to vote in a second vote, yes. And I never forget I was President of Parliament, and this was part of my work. I was invited, and sometimes the church can even be helpful. Many people think churches cannot be helpful. The Secretary General of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the European Union was Noel Trainer. He was here in Brussels, the Secretary General. Now he is the Bishop of Down and Connor, I think is the name. That is Belfast, more or less. And he invited me to a monastery in the north of the Republic of Ireland, Maynooth, to make a speech before the bishops, and there was one cardinal and I think 60 people or so. And I said to them, they thought there is not enough Christianity in the Treaty of Lisbon and so on. And we had unfortunately a colleague from Denmark who was speaking against the Lisbon Treaty, and he said abortion will be easier and so on. So this has nothing to do with the Treaty of Lisbon. And so I tried to convince them to say yes to the Treaty of Lisbon, and then they made a statement that they were in favor of the Lisbon Treaty, and not because of me. The Irish said yes, but it was a stone in the whole development to get an agreement from the Irish as well. And then in Germany, and then I stop, then in Germany there were a group of people who went to the German High Court, the Deutsche Verfassungsgericht, because they were against the Lisbon Treaty and they thought the Lisbon Treaty was not in accordance with the German constitution. And I was very happy when the 1st of December, I think it was 2009, the Lisbon Treaty became reality. So this was the most enjoyable, if I can say so, experience for me.
So, Hans-Gert and I have a certain common feeling. And he is exactly felt that he perhaps should stop a little moment. And that's exactly what I thought. Because I think that your LEINEN has still something to say this evening to the book and to Hans-Gert Pöttering. It is you.
Yeah, I totally agree that this was a good 1.5 hours with a tour d'horizon on highlights and downsides of our experience with European Union and European politics. Yeah, it was a real challenge to read the 660 pages. Actually, I gave up when you have been student in Bonn, like me, and I was thinking whether the one page where you have been moaning that the leftists have been beaten, the Christian Democratic Student Organization, whether you have been in that bagarre and me, but I can't remember. I think that there's been others because we are peaceful people. Yeah, anyway, I think Hans-Gert is an icon and an outstanding personality. And I liked very much your biography from your very beginning. You are coming from a more small city. The city is not far from a neighbor country, the Netherlands. You are rooted in the Catholic Church and have been an altar boy. So 3 similarities with me, coming from a village, coming from a neighborhood to France, and being as well a Catholic altar boy. And especially your early conviction that the Schuman Declaration was a revolutionary idea, revolutionary in its kind, and that this was an idea that fascinated you from very young on. And I think one would agree that you are a politician with compassion, with really excitement, with engagement. It's not a duty, but it's coming from your heart. And therefore, when the one question was, how did you deal with journalists and visitors groups? Indeed, the glass is always half full. It is not half empty. And I was coming here to the parliament saying to my assistants, we are not bad-mouthing the EU. When you have visitors groups, you can moan from the first minute to the last one. No, you will defend the EU and you will promote the issues that have been a success. And you have been like this all during your career, believing in the idea of a united Europe and fighting for it. And that is what is characterizing your career and as well the success of your political life. Now, you're rooted in a Catholic church. It could be another religion, but that gives you the idea of values. And when I heard Hans-Gert in his positions as Parliament President, Group President, you always came from values that we share in Europe. And indeed, we said it 1,000 times, the common market is not something that could unite so much. It is the deep-rooted civilizatory values that we share in Europe that brings us together and should keep us together. And especially freedom and democracy. I think these are two values and objectives that are very close to your heart. And I think we all have to thank you for what you have done for the European Parliament. Now, with you, the President of the Parliament could sit for the first time with the European Council. That didn't happen before. And you gave the Parliament a real profile. And no wonder that you have been at your age at 30 at the founding of the EPP. The first real European political party. You have been the youngest member of the first elected European Parliament. Now, I think that you had a sense of really cultivating the neighborhoods. You got a lot of awards for the Polish-German reconciliation, as well your work for the Franco-German friendship. You had a sense of the big Germany having good relationships to neighbors, what was as well the politics of Helmut Kohl, not only with the big ones, but as well with the smaller ones. And enlargement was as well close to your heart. Even I remember your strict no to Turkey. We had to vote twice whether Turkey is a candidate and whether we get starting negotiations with Turkey. And there, I think that was the red line for you for many reasons. As we see today, it didn't work. Now, I think rooted in values leads you to the European House of History, this marvelous project where many thousands, 10,000s and more people could really look where we are coming from and following the whole stages of after-war Europe, and maybe learning a lot about what has been good and what has not been good, and taking lessons for the future. So I think values, democracy, unity is something that is part of your political life. And you continue, and that's good. You're a professor on universities, on conferences, you are networking around the world. And I think you are from Osnabrück, and we remember the Westphalian peace agreement of Münster and Osnabrück. Maybe you should stay in Brussels till we have a Place de la Westphalie or a Rue de Osnabrück to have a route from Hans-Gert Pöttering in this European capital. Anyway, I think we all thank you very much for what you have done. I learned to know you much before I came in the parliament because you have been active in the European movement, active in NGOs, in the society, and not only in the institutions, which is so important. You could be here in the Brussels bubble and never have contact back to your constituency or to the people outside, and you went out always to all the audiences and really defending Europe. And therefore, that was a good day today to reflect on this rich life, this successful life. And we all wish you many, many years of health and of energy to continue the road to a united Europe. Thank you so much, Hans-Gert Pöttering.
Thank you. May I just come back to Isabella's question and put to you that she asked you what you actually enjoyed, and you are, from the tip of your head to your toes, a politician, and a very, very good one. So perhaps you could tell us whether you really, really enjoyed winning when it came to the elections. And do you still get that thrill of the democratic process of elections, contesting and challenging in that way and putting your ideas to a vote? Is that still an enjoyment for you?
Thank you so much, Michael. I would like to refer to Joe LEINEN in a minute as well, if you allow. I think democracy, and especially European democracy in the European Union, has always to be defended. And you know the phrase in French, although my French is not so good, les extrêmes se touchent. The extremes unite. They are negative to projects, they are against. Grazie per la tua presenza, Guido. Grazie. Guido, grazie per la tua presenza. Okay. Questa sera. And so I think we always must defend not only the democracy in our countries, but we have to defend the European democracy, which is the most difficult one. And so if I say the glasses are full, but it can easily become half empty. And I think it's our obligation that this will not happen. If you allow me to say a few words to Joe LEINEN, and I think you were much too positive, Joseph, but you mentioned Turkey. And I don't know how it was in the time of Klaus HÄNSCH when he was president, how the protocol was. I got the visit in March 2009. My term ended in July 2009. The visit of the Prime Minister of Turkey, Erdogan. He was not president at that time. And he had his foreign minister, his European minister, and a third minister with him. And then he asked me the question, what is the position of the European Parliament concerning Turkish membership in the European Union? And my answer was, Prime Minister, I think there would be a majority in the European Parliament for Turkish membership if you fulfill the criteria. But my personal conviction is different. I think it's too much for the European Union, politically, culturally, financially, geographically, to have Turkey in the European Union. So this was rather something to tell. I was friendly, of course, but the substance of my message was very against the convictions of Erdogan. And now the protocol, I was told, in the European Parliament is, and my office was on the 11th floor, the protocol is that the President of Parliament can go down to the entrance, which is the exit, to receive people, but only heads of state, I was told. And so when I look into your intelligent faces, you always have the right ideas at the right moment. This is not with me always the case. But at that moment when Erdogan wanted to leave me, I had an idea because I was thinking you have to do something to make him a little bit friendly to you. And so I had the idea to accompany the Prime Minister down to the exit and explain the protocol of the European Parliament. And I explained, Prime Minister, the protocol is so and so, heads of state are accompanied or can be accompanied. And then he got the translation, and I saw a small smile in his face, and he said, okay, come and visit me. And then in 2010, when I had no real great position anymore, he met me in Ankara for 1 hour. And I made only 3 exceptions from this rule. The one was who will be crowned on the coming Saturday, Prince Charles, because when he came to make a speech in the European Parliament in one of our rooms, his people asked me to accompany him to the exit. And the third person was my good friend, the Prime Minister of Poland, Donald Tusk. So why do I say this in connection with Turkey? I think one must always be frank and say what you believe, but if you do it in a respectful way, then I think you're on the right side. Sorry for giving you this story, but I was challenged by Joe Leinen when he mentioned Turkey. But of course, we need a good relationship with Turkey, a very special relationship, but not a membership.
Okay. I think we can wrap things up unless someone has a final question. But thank you then for participating. Thank you very much indeed for being so open and clear and honest, as many of us have always experienced. You may wish to say a final word, and I think Klaus may also wish to say anything. Yep, Klaus. No, Klaus.
I think it's Joe Leinen who has a final word, or not?
Yes.
Yes, he has a final word.
I thought you'd given the vote of thanks.
Good. I think I wrapped up already with too much positive, as Hans-Gert was saying, but it's not, let's say, the moment to look deeper in more critical moments of your decision-making and of political life, as we all know. No, to wrap up, as I started, you are an icon for the European Parliament, for the European idea, and for the former Members Association, for the European movement. I think one could add many other platforms where you have been showing leadership and passion. And I think that's what we lack today. If you look around, where do you have real leaders for this united Europe? Good, Macron tries, sometimes he over-tries. There are not many. And with that conviction that accompanied you as well, you feel that many others are making tactics and having not, let's say, the really clear forward idea to promote that Europe, but looking on tactics and power games. And I think you have been a politician from the very young years on, who believed in the European idea and who fought for it, and that is excellent. So I think if I have the last word, or Michael, you have it, I don't know who has the last word. We go now, and that is the procedure of the Bureau. We go to the next step of this wonderful afternoon. No?
The last word is, of course, that Hans-Gert is staying around. His book, which is available, and he's happy to sign the book, and it's not exactly a livre de poche, but I think it's full of wisdom and good sense, as this talk has been today. So, Elisabetta, last word is also going to be the General Secretary.
Sorry. Just because President Pöttering asked me, if you want his book signed, then you should write your name, and it will be easier for him to write a few lines on the book. Thank you.
Okay. So, vielen Dank. Okay.